It's Wednesday, May 15th, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. On Barnstable Today, we learn more about tick safety, discover ways to save money and energy on commercial equipment, and hear more about the housing choice legislation currently making its way through the State House. Now for a look at municipal and legislative news. In 1962, President Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as National Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the calendar week in which May 15th falls as a National Police Week. Established by joint resolution of Congress in 1962, National Police Week pays special recognition to those law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty for the safety and protection of others. We remember and honor these men and women who lost their lives protecting our community. With tick-borne diseases on the rise, protecting yourself and your family from ticks is important. By being aware and taking steps to prevent tick bites, you can enjoy the outdoors. Larry Dapsis, Barnstable County entomologist, says deer ticks can be active all year long. Public health officials say tick season has arrived. What do you say, Larry?
Tick season has arrived, and that was a press release from our State Department of Public Health. And I've seen this story now in a lot of different places. I have Google alerts, ticks everything, and this is a headline that's been posted prominently. And I thought about that, and I almost kind of laughed to myself, because we all know tick season started January 1st. It's going to go out to December 31st and start up again January 1st. These things make antifreeze. When the temperatures are above freezing, break in snow cover, we have tick activity. What I think this headline should have said is people season has arrived, okay? And I say this because, you know, of the call volume I'm getting, samples in my office. It just means that it's not tick season, it's people season. People are getting outside, they're doing yard work, they're going for walks now. So people are just encountering what's been out there all along.
Right. So when we talk about ticks and tick seasons, like you said, the weather plays a part where people are out there, so it's really people season. But let's talk a little bit about, you know, they say this is the apocalypse of
Sure.
ticks because of the wet winter that we had?
Yeah, we had a mild winter, and it's been a relatively wet spring. And so, yeah, the experts are predicting tick apocalypse. It's going to be worse than ever. Well, what people should realize, and it's hard to grasp on this one, that the size of the tick population this year is based on the size of the acorn population crop 2 years ago.
Okay.
So acorns is the fuel for this ecosystem. So the size of the acorn crop would have basically created the size of the mouse population last year, and those mice would have fed a certain number of larval ticks that now are nymph stage ticks just emerging now. Those little things the size of a poppy seed that'll be with us until August that cause 85% of all tick-borne diseases. So rainfall doesn't create ticks, okay?
Got it.
What it has done is just created higher ambient humidity for longer periods of time. So ticks are very, they're subject to desiccation. So when it gets warm and dry, they're going to burrow down into the leaf litter so that it reduces your exposure risk. But with all this great humidity that's been around us, the ticks are all up on top of vegetation. It just increases the exposure risk.
Okay, so exposure risk. Let's talk about this. I see people, friends of mine on social media, and they're like, I'm just not going to walk anymore. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stay on my couch because there's no ticks on my couch. But you taught me a couple of years ago that there's a product out there that I can treat clothing.
Exactly.
I don't want to put something on my skin all the time because I'm leery of those types of products. But talk a little bit about how do we protect ourselves?
I mean, the skin repellents are largely safe, but I don't even use them because the treated clothing and footwear work so well. There's a repellent that contains the active ingredient permethrin that you can get now at all the major garden centers on the Cape. You go in there and tell them you want something to treat your clothing and footwear, they'll know exactly what you're talking about. So you treat your pants, socks, and shoes, and what I found in my research on this product 8 years ago is if a tick is in contact with a treated surface for 60 seconds, it's guaranteed to die. It might take 5 minutes, might take 10 minutes, a little bit longer, but the outcome is inescapable. It is the most effective tool in the box, and it'll keep its activity through 6 washings or 45 days. And I tell people, treat your footwear once a month. So put that in your calendar as a reoccurring appointment.
Right.
Time to treat shoes.
So any other advice for folks out there as they start to do yard work and get out hiking on the trails again?
Sure, certainly the tick checks when you come in from outdoors. Throw your clothes in the dryer for 20 minutes. That'll kill any ticks that might still be attached to them. And I tell people that are inclined to like maybe not want to go outdoors, it's basically Cape Cod's beautiful. Beautiful place to spend outdoor time. So I tell people that don't fear your environment, but understand your environment.
That's great advice, Larry.
Thank you.
You so much. Cape Light Compact's senior analyst, Lindsay Henderson, joins us in studio to highlight the special equipment incentives for businesses. Saving money and energy, even as a commercial business. With me today, Lindsay Henderson, senior analyst from Cape Light Compact. We're going to talk a little bit about commercial kitchens and how to save money and energy. Welcome to the show, Lindsay.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about this program. I kind of thought maybe when we first started the discussion this morning it was just restaurants, but it's all commercial kitchens.
Yeah, so any place, whether it's a restaurant, a nursing home, a school, any place that has commercial kitchen equipment, we have incentives available.
And these incentives look really, really lucrative as well. There's some money to be saved here. So let's start with the program. What is it?
So it's a point of sale incentive. So we have a couple of participating distributors, or a few actually, on the Cape directly that participate in this. So any purchase that is made at one of the participating dealers, as long as it's an eligible purchase, you would get an instant incentive at the time of sale.
At the time of sale, so
At
you
the
don't
time of
have
sale.
to actually mail those rebates
There's
in?
no mail-in form. There is just a quick customer, form that we do ask to sign, the customers to sign, but you don't have to sign your life away and wait weeks for, a rebate in the mail.
That is fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about why you would be replacing equipment. A lot of folks sometimes want to say, well, I could just buy the used equipment. There's, commercial kitchens going out of business. I could just pick up a fridge or an oven from them.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously our job is to promote high efficiency equipment. So new high efficiency equipment, there's a lot of benefits that come with that versus purchasing used. So you're going to get the warranty with it. You're going to be able to have access to these incentives, which might actually bring down the cost to what you might pay for a used equipment.
Right.
Your energy savings, obviously where it's a high efficiency equipment, are going to be greater than if you purchase an older used piece of equipment. And some also benefits would be, some comfort for your staff. Because they're high efficiency, they might not put off as much heat, and therefore, we all know how hot kitchens get
Right.
in the summertime. So those are some benefits about purchasing high efficiency.
Right. Let's talk about the equipment specifically. Ovens and refrigerators, great, we all know those, but there's other things that are in commercial kitchens, right?
There is. So, you've got your fryers, you've got your hot food holding cabinets. We have ice machine incentives as well.
Right.
So even, I think of like a hotel who has ice machines on every floor. We have incentives for those. Dishwashers, so high and low temperature dishwashers, there's incentives available. So it's really, anything that you might use in a commercial kitchen, double check to see if there's incentives available.
Right. And let's talk a little bit about these incentives. We say incentives, but is it $25?
No, so the lowest is, so it ranges from like $100 for maybe a dishwasher or a smaller size refrigerator, up to like $2,000 for a combination oven. So
Right.
it really is pretty substantial depending on what you purchase.
Right. And talk a little bit about, we say saving money in energy. We've talked about saving the energy, but this can reduce their bill as well, their energy bill, right?
Oh, absolutely. Anytime you buy any high efficiency equipment, you're reducing, you're getting energy savings from that. Dollars, as well as saving on your kilowatt hours. There's also some natural gas kitchen equipment that is provided by National Grid at the same participating dealers. So there's really a lot of options to save.
And you said that there were some of those folks here on the Cape as well, because sometimes we think commercial product, we always have to go over that bridge for.
Yeah, so we do have 3 actual dealers on the Cape that are participating in this. We've got Harris Warren Kitchens in Yarmouth, Northeast Restaurant Equipment in Mashpee, and Patriot Equipment in Sandwich. And then of course we know there's a lot of larger dealers that sell onto the Cape, so you know, even if you don't purchase from one of them, it's a good chance that maybe one of your dealers do participate.
What a great program. Anything else that you want folks to know about?
No, just take advantage of this. You know, it's fairly new to us, so especially, you know, in the summertime, we know it gets tough. You know, a piece of equipment might die and you're kind of forced to run around. Just remember that these programs are there, and it's an instant incentive.
Right, and before we end, I just kind of want to make sure that the length of this program, is there any cutoff dates that it ends?
No, we've been approved for the next 3 years. So at least for the next 3 years and probably beyond, these programs are available.
Right, so, you know, let's not make it too hot in that kitchen, right?
Yeah, making people comfortable.
Excellent.
And your bills less.
Love it. Thanks, Lindsay.
All right, thank you.
The Baker-Polito administration developed the Housing Choice Initiative to offer a combination of incentives, technical assistance, and new capital grant funding to facilitate community-led housing production across the Commonwealth. This diverse set of tools for communities is intended to create the conditions for sustainable housing development that meets the needs of current and future residents. During a visit to Hyannis, Lieutenant Governor Polito praised the town of Barnstable for their housing initiatives and becoming a housing choice community. She spoke to the community officials about supporting a pathway to more sustainable workforce housing.
Barnstable has been a lead community here on the Cape and in our Commonwealth, thinking about housing as that economic development tool. They understand that they are more than a seasonal economy, and if they're going to continue to grow their year-round economy, they need places for people to live that are accessible and affordable. And to reimagine places like downtown Hyannis, which have traditionally been a destination for visitors, should be a community and a neighborhood where people will live year-round to work at, say, Cape Cod Hospital or any one of the businesses in this area. And they need places that they can afford, that are accessible, that are, and many times, called workforce housing, which is what we're featuring today in a building at 255 Main Street, which is one of the oldest buildings along this street, which was known for the trade component of its work, now being repurposed for workforce housing.
Welcome. And good afternoon. I'm Mark Ells, Town Manager here in Barnstable. And on behalf of the Town of Barnstable and our Town Council, this is an exciting moment here that we are gathered to talk about Barnstable and our state of Massachusetts participating in the Housing Choice Initiative. We're certainly well aware of the challenges we have in the Commonwealth and in Barnstable relative to housing. And this sort of participation of our community and other communities certainly is needed to stay focused on the priorities. It's not only housing, it allows for the creation of jobs, it allows for us to maintain a well-balanced community. So we're very thankful and privileged that certainly I and our town council, our vice president, John Flores is here, Councilor Schnepp and Councilor Hebert is here as well, showing their support of this. But we're very privileged and honored to have our administration, certainly represented by our Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito here, who's been a wonderful partner, not only relative to housing issues, but on all issues. They are accessible at all times, they are responsive to our needs, and we can't say thank you enough to our governor and our lieutenant governor. So thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Having been someone who grew up here on the Cape in the summers, I completely recognize that this community has a tourism and a seasonal economy. But now the Cape has become so much more than that. This is a year-round community with industries like healthcare, it beyond just the tourism seasonal industries that need people to work at the jobs that are being created and growing here, and to have places that are accessible and affordable and convenient to live in order to be part of the year-round experience here on the Cape. And zoning reform in Massachusetts hasn't been undertaken for over 50 years. So clearly things have changed, the economy's changed, people are looking at seasonal communities like this and knowing that they're no longer seasonal and they need a new approach. So in order to get to that next level, you need to change the rules. And so Governor Baker and our team, and Secretary Keneally, who's here, will be speaking more about this as well, put out a bill last term and in this term to help communities change their local zoning and adopt the best practices and strategies that you need in order to redesign and redevelop neighborhoods and places within your community, and be able to adopt these zoning best practices with a simple majority vote. Because sometimes having a supermajority, having that 2/3 threshold, is a barrier to getting the zoning changes that are needed in order to create the kind of development and housing production that's needed. So the Housing Choice Bill would change that. It would empower communities to change their zoning bylaws of their choice, driven by the community's vision, and allow them to then create the housing production plan and create the units of housing that are needed for that next generation to be able to call that community home. So we're hoping that we can get this Housing Choice Bill done. That's the purpose of being here today, and to really spotlight the leadership here in Barnstable that is really sort of paving the way for your future. I want to thank again Mark Ells and the whole team for becoming a Housing Choice designated community. That means you had to create a housing production plan. You used $1 million of your community preservation funds to invest in infrastructure. And as part of this Housing Choice designation, we provided a small grant for infrastructure to be able to redevelop the property that is right behind us for the kinds of workforce housing units that Mike Loff and his team can use for their workforce and for others in this community. So you're actually standing in front of a living example, a real example of how a property can be reused for the kinds of housing that are needed in this neighborhood, and then scale this to do more, whether in this neighborhood or in places across this Commonwealth.
The Cape's housing market has been impacted by large and uncontrollable macroeconomic forces that include the rise of a strong Boston metro economy, the housing market crash of 2009, the baby boomers wanting to retire on beautiful Cape Cod, and then the desirability as a vacation destination, which is compounded by our isolated geography. Provincetown, in other words, can't really go 3 towns over for a workforce. They have to work within their constraints. So all of these forces, combined with our environmental protection, our growth control policies, have resulted in high demand for seasonal, retirement, and income-producing properties. We now have to pay attention to where the Cape Codders that work here all year round, where do they live? We are at a tipping point for the Cape's economic health if we do not address this housing criticality. That's why we applaud the Baker administration and the leadership shown here today, because it starts at the top. Our leaders have to say that this is not working well for us, and that we have to convince those of us that have a safe house, that are comfortable, that our neighbors and our fellow workers don't have the same opportunity. We must create that for them. So we applaud the filing of Bill H3507. We think it sets the table, again, for further housing solutions that will also include regional nuances, because while we all have the same problems, we do have certain challenges, including our seasonality here, which is really only, we have a great year-round economy. We just add a whole pile to it during 3 months of the summer. But we need initiatives that are going to support housing for a variety of lifestyle stages and a variety of lifestyles. We need housing solutions for seasonal workers, and we need zoning reform that's going to encourage smart growth and housing diversity while it maintains the village characters and our communities that we love so much. So we will continue as the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce to work with you and regional partners to develop new ideas so Cape Codders can continue to live, work, play in a place we all love.
The magnitude of this housing crisis requires that we respond proportionally by pushing multiple levers at the same time. The town of Barnstable should be applauded for taking such initiative. And as I mentioned earlier, a Ridgewood project of 8 units would not be going through if it weren't for the town of Barnstable. But we need more projects like Ridgewood in our region. And the Housing Choice Bill provides the legislative pathway to make that possible. There are many more legislative fixes that we need in addition to what's contained in this bill, but we can't let perfection be the enemy of good. We have full expectation that there'll be more legislative initiatives and more projects put forth that will be supported at the State House. We have to pass this legislation to make it easier so that at future town meetings, we can pass common sense initiatives. It makes no sense that we need a 2/3 majority of voters to let a homeowner rent an in-law apartment to a hardworking year-rounder. But right now on Cape Cod, it is easier to build a McMansion than a multifamily. It's easier to put an addition on a home and rent it seasonally than it is to rent it out year-round. Our zoning is inadvertently making it harder for year-rounders to live and work here. This legislation gives towns the tools to protect and preserve our way of life here on Cape Cod. We can reverse the trend. I'm very hopeful. We can keep families in our neighborhoods and in our schools. We can keep professionals here, ensuring our year-round economy continues to thrive, but we need housing. That's the critical piece in all of this. And in order to do that, the Housing Choice Bill is the first of many steps to sustain the beautiful Cape Cod that we know and love. Thank you.
The availability and the attainability of workforce housing is the most pressing issue. Yet what is missing among this very diverse and very powerful group of advocates and people with a vested interest is some of the necessary tools to actually get that work done. Those missing tools are found in the Housing Choice Bill. Those missing tools need to be adopted for the work that everyone is gathered here that is doing to move forward in an effective and a thoughtful manner for each of the Cape's 15 towns.
In closing, Barnstable is proud to have been listed as part of the Housing Choice Initiative. And Barnstable is appreciative of the support that we receive from our administration, and certainly having our Lieutenant Governor and Secretary and all of you here to share in this. And Barnstable stands committed to addressing the housing choice and housing challenges of our region and our state.
Here's a look at the upcoming meetings for boards, commissions, and committees. Up next, things to do, places to go, and people to meet. The Hyannis Library is preparing for a major renovation and restoration building project, and the community input is being solicited in a visioning session on Tuesday, May 21st at 5 p.m. at the library. Please RSVP to hplrsvp@gmail.com by Friday, May 17th. It takes a village to prepare for the future. Comments, suggestions, accolades? Connect with us on Facebook, email us, or send us an old-fashioned note by carrier pigeon. Channel 18 works for you. I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.